Hello class, good day to all. Welcome to our statistics and probability class. In our previous video lesson, you have learned the importance of understanding sample space and its role on how to determine the possible values of random variables. Our topic for this session is probability distribution of a discrete random variable. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to illustrate a probability distribution of a discrete random variable and its properties, and compute probabilities corresponding to a given random variable. Bago tayo magsimula ng ating bagong topic, let us first have a review of some concepts and key terms that we have discussed in the previous lesson. Try to identify the term being described by the following statements. Write your answers on your notebook. Kunin nyo ang inyong mga notebooks at doon kayo magsagot. So, mga simpleng identification questions lang ito na kayang-kaya nyong sagutin kung naintindihan nyo yung previous video lesson natin. Class, you may pause this video while answering. Pwede nyong i-pause itong video habang kayo ay nagsasagot. Okay, so class, give two examples of discrete random variable, two examples of continuous random variable, and give the three steps in determining the values of a random variable. Pagkatapos nyong masagot itong mga tanong, so pwede nyo na ulit i-resume ang video lessons para dun sa mga iba pang discussion. Let us start. What is probability? Probability is the measure of the likelihood that an event will occur in a random experiment. It is a numerical description of how likely an event is to occur. Probability is the core of inferential statistics. The importance of probability lies on its usefulness in making predictions and estimates. An important application of probability is in the field of research. Probability is very much helpful in making prediction. Estimates and predictions are important parts of research investigation. Another application of probability is in analyzing weather patterns. Probability provides information about the likelihood that something will happen. So, meteorologists, for instance, use weather patterns to predict the probability of rain or typhoon. Another application of probability is in the field of medicine. In medicine, particularly epidemiology, probability theory is used to understand the relationship between exposures and the risk of health effects. And during this pandemic, experts are making predictions sa mga health risk at rate ng transmissions ng COVID-19 virus. So sa mga reports na inuulat sa atin, especially ng mga research experts, yung mga data na binibigay nila sa atin, mostly ginamitan nila yan ng mga probability theory. They make assumptions, they make predictions about this about the conditions ng COVID-19 transmission. And another application of probability is in business and economics. Many businesses apply the understanding of uncertainty and probability in their business decision practices. Probability models can greatly help businesses in optimizing their policies and in making safe investment decisions. Ngayon naman class ay dadako na tayo sa pag-compute ng probability. And I will introduce you to a term known as classical probability. classical probability is a concept that can help us learn probability distribution. So classical probability is a kind of probability applied when the outcome is assumed to have equal likelihood of happening. And the formula for finding classical probability of an event is the number of outcomes of event over the total possible outcomes. Pakitandaan class yung formula natin in finding the classical probability of a certain event. So again, I will repeat, the formula is number of outcomes of event over the total number of possible outcomes. Okay, so in probability, event is an outcome or defined collection of outcomes of a random experiment. And since the collection of all possible outcomes to a random experiment is called sample space, another definition of event is any subset of a sample space. So example, in tossing a coin, the sample space is composed of head and tail. So, ibig sabihin, ano yung event na tinatawag natin? Ang tinatawag nating event dito, kung ang ating sample space sa tossing a coin is head or tail, head is an event, tail is an event. Let us have this example. Find the probability of getting an even number when you roll a die once. So first, let us identify the number of events and the possible outcomes or the sample space. Okay, so when we roll a die, so we have how many possible outcomes here? We have 6 because a die has 6 faces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So these are the possible outcomes which make up the sample space. Now, based on the problem, we are asked to find the probability of getting an even number. So, how many even numbers in the sample space 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and 6? So, obviously, the even numbers there is 2, 4, and 6. Okay, so how many? Ilan yon? 2, 4, 6. So, tatlo. We have 3 event which are we have 3 events which are 2, 4, and 6. These 3 are even numbers in the faces of a die. So, anong formula na gagamitin natin? So, based on the classical probability formula, so we have the number of events over the total possible outcome. So, yun yung formula. So, anong ibig sabihin nito? So, the probability of getting an even number is equals to 3 over 6. So, when you reduce 3 over 6 to its lowest term, it's 1/2. So, therefore, the probability of getting an even number when you roll a die once is 1/2. And when you convert 1/2 to percent, it's equivalent to 50%. Or when you convert 1/2 to decimal, this is 0.5. So this is a very simple class. So napakadali lang nito. So let's try this another example. What is the probability of getting 2 tails when you flip a coin twice? Okay. So pag nag-flip ka ng coin twice, what is the probability of getting 2 tails? Okay. So now, ang una natin ginagawa is we identify all the possible outcomes or the outcomes that make up the sample space. So when you flip a coin twice, so the possible outcomes are the following: tail, tail, head, tail, tail, head, and head, head. So ngayon, yung event na hinahanap natin dito is getting 2 tails. So ilan? Ilan yung event na dalawang tail yung mag-a-appear? So obviously, based sa ating sample space ay isa lang. So the probability of getting 2 tails when we flip a coin twice is 1 over 4. Okay, so saan nanggaling yung 1? Doon sa number of event na isa lang. Okay? So, and then yung 4, so yun yung total possible outcomes dun sa ating sample space. So, therefore, the probability of getting 2 tails when you flip a coin is 1/4 or 25%. Okay, let's try this. A regular 6-sided die and a coin are simultaneously rolled and flipped once. What is the probability of getting a tail and the number less than 6? Okay, so ngayon, ano yung event na hinahanap natin? Based on the problem, we are asked to get the probability of a tail and the number less than 6. Okay, ilan ba ang number na less than 6 sa faces ng die? So again, so ilan? 5. So ano-ano yung less than 6? Obviously, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So ano pa yung isang condition dun sa problem? Getting a tail and a number less than 6. Okay, so ang event natin dito is 1 tail, 2 tail, 3 tail, 4 tail, and 5 tail. So ilang lahat yon? We have a total of 5 events. Sa sample space natin, ilan lahat yung possible outcomes? Okay, so ilan yon? Siyempre, ang possible outcomes, so ilan yung number less than 6? Okay. Ilan pala lahat yung sample space? So, ang sample space natin doon lahat, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then, match with tail. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Match with a head. So, how many outcomes are there in all? So, we have 12 outcomes. So, the probability of getting a tail and a number less than 6 when we roll a die and flip a coin once is 5/12 or 42%. So, saan galing yung 42%? So, that is 5/12, 0.42 times 100 equals to 42%. Okay. Okay, so maliwanag na yung pagkuha natin ng probability. Yung classical probability of an event. Now, dadako tayo dun sa probability distribution. Yung tinatawag nating probability distribution ay tinatawag ding probability mass function. And this consists of all possible values and the corresponding probabilities of a discrete random variable. The corresponding probability of the values of the random variable must be equal to 1. Class, let's have these properties of a probability distribution. All probability distributions have the following properties. So, please remember this property. So, dalawang properties ito ng probability distribution na mahalagang alam ninyo. The first one, the probability of each value of the random variable must be greater than or equal to 0 or less than or equal to 1. So, in symbol, we write the probability of x is greater than or equal to 0 but less than or equal to 1. And the second property, the sum of the probabilities of all values of the random variable must be equal to 1. So in symbol, we write the summation of the probability of x is equals to 1. Okay, class, let's try if you understand the properties of probability distribution na ibinigay natin dun sa nakaraang slide. Let us identify which among this probability is a probability distribution. Is it A, B, C, or D? Okay, so upon looking, so kung nakita nyo na, A and C are probability distributions. Why? Because the sum of the probabilities in A and C are equal to 1. So let's have this. Okay, for A, so the random variables are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the probability of 1 is 0.22. The probability of 2 is 0.45. The probability of 3 is 0.13. The probability of 4 and 5 is about 0.1. Okay, when we add 0.22, 0.45, 0.13, 0.1, and 0.1, this is exactly equal to 1. So, kaya itong A, this is a probability distribution. Kasi according dun sa ating properties, dapat daw yung probability is between 0 and 1 inclusive, and yung total niya is equals to 1. So, pasok na pasok itong letter A. Tingnan natin yung B. So, ang random variables natin dito is 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So, the probability of 2 is 0.42. The probability of 4 is 0.05. The probability of 6 is 0.21. The probability of 8 is 0.14. The probability of 10 is 0.28. Now, kapag inad mo yung 0.42, 0.05, 0.21, 0.14, and 0.28, iyon ba ay exactly equal to 1? So, hindi. It's more than 1. So, therefore, itong B ay hindi probability distribution. Now, how about this C? So, the random variables are 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, as you can see, nakikita natin na yung probability niya ay naka-express as fractions. By the way, class, yung probability ng random variable ay pwede nating i-express into decimal, into fraction, or into percent. Kapag percent, pwedeng 20%, 40%, 13%, and so on and so forth. At kapag percent, dapat, para makonsider natin siya, na probability distribution, dapat ang total ng probability niya is 100%. Okay, itong tingnan natin na naka-express as fraction. So, 2 over 15, 2 over 15, 1 over 5, 3 over 15, and 1 over 3. So, tingnan natin. These are the probabilities are dissimilar fraction. So, magkakaiba yung denominator. So, anong gagawin natin para mabilisan natin itong ma-add? So, itong dalawa lang naman ang problema natin. Yung 1 over 5 at saka 1 over 3. Yung 1 over 5, kung gagamitan natin ang denominator na 15, so this is equals to what? To 3 over 15. At yung 1 over 3, this is equals to 5 over 15. Therefore, i-add mo lang yung numerator dahil equal na yung kanilang mga denominator. So, 2 plus 2, 4. So, ano nga itong 1 over 5? Magiging 3 over 15. So, ilan na yon? The 7 plus 3, 10. Tapos, itong 1 over 3, 5 over 15 ito. 10 plus 5, this is 15. So, 15 over 15 is equals to 1. Therefore, C is a probability distribution. Now, let's try D. Okay. Yung D natin, kung makikita ninyo, sa umpisa pa lang, hindi na siya probability distribution kasi, kasi nakikita natin na yung probability ng unang random variable is already more than 1. Therefore, hindi na siya agad probability distribution. Okay. So let us try this example. So suppose there are 3 frontliners who will undergo a swab test. Let us use P for a frontliner tested positive and N for a frontliner tested negative. Determine the probability of 3 frontliners tested negative, 1 frontliner tested negative, and fewer than 2 frontliners tested negative, and let us find the sum of all the probabilities. Okay, so for the solution, we have to follow a certain steps for determining the probability of what is asked in the problem. For step 1, let us determine the sample space. So, ano ba yung sinasabi nating sample space? O yung sample space, ito yung mga posibleng outcomes ng event. Okay, so, ano yung, kung tatlo, ilan nga ulit yung itetest natin na frontliner? So, tatlo. So, ano yung mga possible outcomes o resulta ng test natin? So, sa sample space, so pwedeng sila tatlo positive, pwedeng dalawang positive, isang negative, isang positive, dalawang negative, and then pwede naman na positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, positive, Negative, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, 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 negative. Okay, so ang hinahanap natin dito, yung uh, uh, those frontliners who will tested pa negative. Sa tatlong frontliners, sa una yung una natin is tatlong frontliner na matetest na pare-parehong negative. So, ano yung probability nun? So, that is the number one question. So, create the table for all possible outcomes and count n. Okay, ang ika-countdown natin is n since ang hinahanap natin is yung probability ng magne-negative. Okay. So, yun sa PPP, tatlong positive, syempre walang negative dun. So, 0. Yung PPN, so isang negative. PNN, dalawang negative. PNP, so isang negative. NPP, isang negative. NPN, so that is dalawang negative. So, negative, negative, positive. So, dalawang negative. Negative, 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 tatlong negative. So, okay. So, ang value ng random variables natin na n for negative is 0, 1, 2, and 3. For step 3, ang gagawin natin is we will construct a frequency distribution. Kung natatandaan nyo yung frequency distribution, nung nagko-construct kayo nito, sa statistics na pinag-aralan nyo nung nasa grade 10 kayo, so, gagawa tayo ng table, yung frequency distribution na tinatawag, at bibilangin natin yung number of occurrences or yung tinatawag nating frequency. Okay, so we have to count how many times the value occur from the previous step. Bibilangin lang natin dun sa step 2 natin. So again, yung ating number of random variables natin, which represent the number of frontliners who will be tested negative is 0, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, yung number ng occurrences naman natin, 0, 0 negative is 1, 1 negative is 3. Kung saan ang galing yun, dito lang, ilang beses nag-appear yung 1, 1, 2, 3. Kaya dito nakalagay 3. Ilang beses nag-appear, yung magkakaroon tayo ng dalawang negative, so 1, 2, 3. So, tatlo din. Ilang beses yung tatlong negative, so isa. Okay? So, tingnan natin. So, 1, 3, 3, 1. So, ang total nito ay 8. So, saktong-sakto dito sa total number of outcomes natin na nakalagay dun sa ating sample space. Okay. Okay, for step 4, we have to construct probability distribution of the random variable. Okay, so we get this probability distribution from step 3, yung number of frontliners tested negative and the number of occurrences. Yung random variable natin, no, 0, 1, 2, and 3, and the corresponding frequency or yung number of occurrences natin. Ita-translate lang natin to into a probability distribution. Okay, so yung n natin dito, ito yung number of frontliners tested negative or ito yung tinatawag nating random variables na 0, 1, 2, 3, and then itatapat lang natin yung corresponding probability. At saan galing itong nakuha nating probability? Ito ay galing dito sa number of occurrences. Yung 1 over 8, kasi dito sa 0, isang beses yung occurrence niya ng event na yon. So, that is 1 over 8. Saan galing yung 8? Yung 8, ito yung total number of possible outcomes dun sa ating sample space. Okay, 0 is 1 over 8, 1, 3 over 8. So, saan galing tong 3 over 8? O, ayun yung sa 1. So, 3. And then 2, 3, 3 over 8. And then yung 3 is 1. So, 3 frontliners who will be tested negative. Yan yung probability na hinahanap natin. So, 3, n is equals to 3. Okay, so ang probability that 3 frontliners will be tested negative is equals to 1 over 8 or 12 over 5%. Okay, what is the probability that 1 frontliner will be tested negative? So, ano daw ang probability na isang frontliner ang matetest natin sa negative? So, gagamitin na lang din natin ngayon yung probability distribution na nagawa natin from the last step. So, So frontliners will be tested negative. One frontliner. So probability of one frontliner tested negative is 3 over 8. Okay, so for letter C, ang hinahanap naman natin is fewer than 2 frontliners who will be tested negative. Okay, ano ba yung mga fewer than 2? Of course, ang fewer than 2 is yung 0 and 1. So kung what is the probability that uh, fewer than 2 frontliners will be tested negative? So this include the probability of 0 frontliners tested negative and 1 frontliner tested negative. So ang probability ng 0 is 1 over 8 at ang probability ng 1 is 3 over 8. We just add these probabilities. 1 over 8 plus 3 over 8 is equals to 4 over 8 or 1 half. And 1 half is equals to 50%. Okay, for the last question, what is the sum of all the probabilities? In order to get the sum of all the probabilities, we will just add all the probabilities. So we have the probability of 0, which is equals to 1/8, the probability of 1, which is equals to 3 over 8, the probability of 2, which is equals to 3 over 8, and the probability of 3, which is equals to 1/8. 1/8 plus 3 over 8 plus 3 over 8 plus 1/8 is equals to 8 over 8 or equals to 1. So the sum of all the probabilities is equals to 1. This means that the probability represents a probability distribution. Okay, let's try this another example. The daily demand for copies of A4-sized paper used for printing of modules at a bookstore has the following probability distribution. Determine the probability that 3 or more copies will be demanded on a particular day. Probability that the demand will be at least 2 but not more than 6. And then we have to find the sum of all the probabilities. Okay. For our solution, for first question, the probability that 3 or more copies will be demanded on a particular day. So in symbol, we can write the probability of copies greater than or equal to 3. In order to solve this, we must add all the probabilities from 3 to 9. Kasi sabi dito, probability that C or copy is more than or equal to 3. That is, the probability of copies greater than 3 is yung probability ng 3 equals to 0.14, the probability of 4 equals to 0.12, the probability of 5 equals to 0.10, the probability of 6 equals to 0.08, the probability of 7 equals to 0.7, the probability of 8 equals to 0.06, the probability of 9 equals to 0.07. So you add them up, 0.14, 0.12, 0.10, 0.08, 0.07, 0.06, and 0.07. This is equals to 0.64 or 64%. So the probability that there are 3 or more copies that will be demanded on a given day is equals to 0.64 or 64%. For the next question, the probability that the demand will be at least 2 but not more than 6. So, ibig sabihin, so, the copies is greater than or equal to 2 but less than or equal to 6. In order to solve this, we must add all the probabilities from 2 to 6. So, that is 0.16 plus 0.14 plus 0.12 plus 0.10 and plus 0.08. So, the probability is equals to 0.60 or 60%. So the probability that at least 2 but not more than 6 copies will be demanded on a given day is equals to 60% or 0.06. Okay, what is the sum of all the probabilities? So in order to get the sum, we will add all the probabilities. So we will add 0.06, 0.14, 0.16, 0.14, 0.12, 0.10, 0.08, 0.07, 0.06, 0.07. So this is exactly equal to 1. So the sum of all the probabilities is equals to 1. This means that the distribution represents a probability distribution. I hope you learned something from our discussion today. So thank you for listening. And if you have any question, do not hesitate to send me a personal message or send your question through our group chat. Thank you and stay safe.